Hey, good morning, everybody. We are doing this webinar style, even though we're using Zoom meetings. So you're all of your videos are off and you're all muted. We are gonna get started because we're gonna upload this recording to the website later today or tomorrow, and I suspect that the recording is the way most people are going to end up viewing this. So I wanted to jump right in, and if anybody misses anything right at the beginning because they joined a few minutes late, you can always go back and look at the recording. So this is they're on page 1. Welcome to the workshop for the 2021 Human Services Funding Process and Application. A couple of logistics right as we get started. If you have any questions, you can go to the participants button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're using your phone, somewhere else on the screen, and raise your hand and I will get to you. You can also put a question in the chat box if you have it. While I'm doing the PowerPoint, I think I will be able to monitor the chat, so I might answer your questions that you have as we're going through, or I might save them to the end and get them all at once when I can see them, but we will get to your questions and we will have time at the end for questions. Our application is not all that complicated, so this should not take all that long. Normally, as you can see, normally this would be an application for a biennium of funding, and this year it is just for 1 year, for 2021, January to December 2021, because, and I will answer one of the other burning questions, how much human services funding is going to be available for 2021? We still do not know. So the human services funding is 1% of the general fund. Like all city and state budgets, ours has been decimated, and so we anticipate there's going to be less human services funding for 2021. How much less, we don't know yet, but it's probably less, and it might be substantially less. So if that happens, that will unfortunately mean fewer allocations than in most years, and that is why we're making it a 1-year process. So hopefully, if we do have a reduction in funding, it is just for 1 year, and we can go back to our normal year in 2020, normal funding process in 2022, but who knows? So for that reason, for the stuff that we don't know yet, we are sticking with the 1-year process. So let's dive right in. There we go. So the strategic focus areas, the first thing you will pick on the application process, these are essentially the same 5 priority areas that we are currently using and currently funding. If you filled out the 2018 application, this whole thing is going to look pretty familiar, and actually it should be a little bit simpler. These are largely the same definitions. We tweaked the language a little bit and added clarifying definitions that you can see here, and you can also see in the application. And hopefully those clarifying definitions make it a little bit easier to identify which program you're applying for. However, we do not have a specific amount of money allocated to each of these programs. It's more about which some of them will get funded more or less based on the strength of the applications. So it really doesn't matter or hurt your or help your eligibility or chances of getting funded based on which one you pick. Just pick the one that is most closely related to the program you're applying for. So the eligibility qualifications, basic stuff, you got to be a public serving entity or a nonprofit. If you are a nonprofit, you have to have your 501c3 designation letter from the IRS. And then basic things we need, the E-Verify confirmation from your organization, contact information for the ED and financial and program contact, your list of active directors, and most recent notes from a board meeting. And then we require liability insurance up to $1 million of general liability. The basic requirements for contracting with City of Lakewood for human services funding. Before we get into the meat of the application, what are the raters going to be expecting in September when they start looking at applications? They're going to be looking for, did you pick just one strategic area to apply for a program? How well did you argue that this moves the needle or meets a need within this strategy? The city has a mandate to focus on children, youth, and families. So there is a small bump in points for programs that primarily serve children and youth. And you'll see in the application, youth is 18 to 24, so up to 24. It's a small bump, but it's almost just to highlight that as an emphasis. And we encourage you to talk about how you impact children, youth, and families, or have any impact on children, youth, and families throughout your application when you get the opportunity to. The maximum request is $25,000, same as this last biennium. The minimum for this last biennium was unofficially $8,000, and the floor was $8,000, and kind of still is, but that's an unofficial minimum because just with the reductions, it might make sense to fund somebody for less than that, but the maximum is certainly still $25,000 per program. So the application itself, the first section is the basic details about the organization and the program for which you are applying. We ask about 2019 and 2020 projected numbers. We know your 2020 numbers are going to be lower or they are unknowable due to COVID-19. We know that. You're not going to be docked any points if your 2020 numbers are lower than 2019 numbers. You're not going to get extra points if they are not lower. We know it's changed. That is more for planning and understanding what's going on with these programs. We ask about whether your organization is receiving any CARES funding. This is throughout the organization, not just for this particular program. That is not a graded question. You do not get points for answering that question. That is more for us to better understand where are things being funded, what are the needs in the community, and just trying to gather that information. We also ask you to identify who is the authorized representative who approves submitting applications like this. We do not require an actual signature. We only require you to identify who the authorized representative is because we strongly encourage electronic applications. We're trying to go paperless. But we know that some of your organizations do require a signature to go out on applications. So we left that box in a format that you can sign it, or you can just fill it out and send it back with the actual signature. The summary of services, this is where we're getting into the meat of the application. Most of these questions are similar to the 2018 format if you submitted an application for the last biennium, but we did reword and consolidate some questions so that we're providing more opportunities for you to celebrate the strengths, the innovation, or the impact of your program. So we strongly recommend that you be promoting yourselves. And there's a small bump for just a couple of points for programs that primarily serve Lakewood residents. And we really want you to help the raters as they're reading this understand how this program benefits the Lakewood community. That's our biggest mandate, is to make sure how are the dollars really going to make a difference in our community as best as they can. We are highly collaborative and value productive collaboration. As many of you know, we have a monthly community collaboration meeting at the city, or right now virtual, that we encourage our partners to attend, although I have not been requiring it. We work on building trust and digging into the biggest challenges in Lakewood and identifying best practices and opportunities to overcome those challenges. So tell us how you participate, how you partner and collaborate. Tell us how you define impact in your program. We know program outcomes are some program outcomes are easier to define and quantify than others, but if your program is more about outputs for a longer term outcome in the community rather than like a clear outcome, sometimes there's a conversation about rental assistance versus something like therapy and advocacy. You can see the impact of one sooner than others. So if you have a program that is more of an output than an outcome, tell us about your theory of change. Tell us about why you're excited about this program and celebrate this program and its impact in Lakewood. Tell us about your outcomes. If you're more of an output-oriented program, tell us your theory of change, why this output is going to lead to an outcome in the community a little later on. The quality outputs used to be the effective practices used to be about program evaluation, but we know some programs are more appropriate for rigorous scientific program evaluation over others. So that's why we ask about impact and incorporating client voice. Perhaps you do have a regular, rigorous program evaluation process, or you might have other formal or informal processes to gather and act on feedback from the community that you serve. So we changed this question to be a bit more broad as well, so you can promote how effective your program is and how you know it is effective. We ask you about eligibility requirements and engagement, basically who in or from Lakewood are you serving specifically? How do you adapt to a variety of diverse populations? We ask you to describe your organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This was a more specific question originally, but we know there are lots of ways that organizations are living this commitment. You might have a board of directors that reflects the diversity of your community or the people that you're serving. You might have staff that reflect the diversity of the client or the community that you're serving. You might have other trainings, initiative, outcomes, feedback that illustrate your organization's commitment to equity. So rather than a technical or too specific question, this is another opportunity to promote and celebrate what your organization is doing. So, and we ask about client data, what are you collecting and how? And we mean typically not in a COVID-19 world where a lot of you have restricted ability to collect demographics. In a non-COVID world, what data are you collecting in? The biggest change to the application is the budget. We no longer ask about the full organizational budget. We only want to know what you would do with the funds if your application were awarded. You've already described your program earlier in the application. This is just a simple description of where the money would go. We thought not asking for more information than we actually need is a way to honor your time and be a good partner, which is one of our main goals. And that's the application itself. The attachments required with the application are here: list of board of directors, the most recent board meeting, your 501c3 letter if you're a nonprofit, your I-990 or your end of year financial situation document, and then your, this is where we do want the 2020 operating budget, copy of it. And you can send these in addition to, as a separate document from the actual application. You can make the entire thing just one combined PDF. I don't care. We just prefer that it be electronic if at all possible, so we can try to go paperless. The application itself is on the community services page, and along with the instructions can be downloaded. It is a fillable locked MS Word document. There's plenty of space to give us your answers. Please make sure your answers are as clear and concise as possible. We won't accept any other information other than the boxes that we give you to fill out. And then we do prefer that you submit the application electronically. You know, we used to also require 2 physical applications be sent to the city. We do not want that anymore. We only want one electronic copy submitted to my email address, which is here, which is on the application, which is on the website, which is on the instructions. Can't miss it. When you submit the application, you will receive an acknowledgement from me that I have it. If you don't get that within about 10 days, please follow with me to make sure that I have it. If you cannot submit an application electronically, reach out to me either over email, or my phone number is also on the application and at the end of this presentation, and get in contact with me, and we can give you an alternative method, but hopefully they all come in electronically. The process itself, the applications are now open. They are on the website, as I said. They are due 5 p.m. Saturday, August 22nd. In September, the Community Services Advisory Board is going to read and rate proposals. We should have a public hearing with all the changes due to COVID-19 and the fact that everything is online. I actually don't know what that process is going to look like or what the date might be for that. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but we're supposed to have a public hearing sometime in October. In mid to late October, the Community Services Advisory Board will send their recommendations to the City Council. And then in November, the Council will approve the allocations for 2021. And then in December, I will be working on the contracts with the funded organizations to start, hit the ground January 1, 2021. So that is the timeline. That is it for our workshop. Nice short 13 minutes. If you have any questions or feedback or need anything after any of this, feel free to email or call me. With that, are there any other questions? So we have one question: can 2 nonprofits that operate under the same EIN each submit their own applications? Yeah, you mean can one fiscal sponsor can one agency be a fiscal sponsor for 2 different nonprofits? Yes. Yeah. And I will answer one question I'm sure some of you are going to have. is so in any biennium, we can only have, each program can only submit one application, but an organization could submit multiple applications. Now, if you have multiple nonprofits that are sharing a fiscal sponsor, that's not the same thing. We will consider those as separate organizations. That's not a big deal. But if an organization on its own behalf is submitting multiple programs, it is less likely that multiple programs will get funded this year because there is going to be restricted funding. But that's all. We'll take what comes in and we will deliberate as best we can with the Community Services Advisory Board. So as I said, unfortunately, it's probably going to be a little bit of a rough year. It's going to be really hard for the community. It's already really hard for the Community Services Advisory Board to select. There are lots of awesome organizations that don't end up getting funded, and all the organizations that do get funded, we wish we could offer more. It's going to be a particularly rough year, but we are going to do the best that we can. So please, get us. Please take the opportunity in the application to celebrate the great work that you're doing and how it impacts Lakewood. What category would employment supports go under? Let me back up to the categories really quick. So more than likely, anything employment related is going to fall into housing assistance and homelessness prevention. In terms of the work Human Services does, we consider workforce development and employment as homelessness prevention, although I know some others will consider it crisis stabilization, kind of depending on the program. But one of those two, and typically probably homelessness prevention. How many organizations apply per year and how many are given funds? So typically, I think for the last biennium, we had about 50 applications and we have 24 contracts. So about half of the applicants got funded. And we anticipate probably around the same amount, between 40 to 50 applications. How many are going to get funded this year is completely up to how much funding is available, which we still do not know. The 2021 city budget is still unclear. Any more any more questions? Okay, as I said, feel free to reach out to me with any and all questions. Please get your applications in by August 22nd. And if there is nothing else, I will close this out. And this recording will be on the website, on the community services page, along with the application itself, later today or tomorrow to be referred to. So, okay, that should do it. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining. Good luck to you all. Have a safe and healthy summer, and thanks for all the great work that you do.